Are migrants leading to large unemployment numbers? Well, according to Fed Chair Jerome Powell, yes, in fact, they are. This is something the Democrats don't want to admit. But in his announcement this week, Powell said this is something they're tracking as they try to avoid recession. They have to look at joblessness, and joblessness is worse because of an influx of migrants. Watch.
Job creation, it depends on the inflows, right? So if you're having millions of people come into the labor force and you're creating 100,000 jobs, you're going to see unemployment go up. So it really depends on what's the trend underlying the volatility of people coming into the country. We understand there's been quite an influx across the borders, and that has actually been one of the things that's allowed unemployment rate to rise. And the other thing is just the slower hiring rate, which is something we also watch carefully. So it does depend on what's happening on the supply side.
Oh, interesting.
Influx across the border.
The people, so these are, what he's saying is these are all legal migrants. These are all legal migrants who are coming here no, they're not. Let's call them what they are, which is illegal immigrants. They are not legal migrants.
Right.
They can dance around this all they want. But the truth is out there, and he said it under his breath. You can tell he didn't really want to have to admit this on camera. Mm-hmm. There we have it.
Yes, he said that. And it stands to reason, right? It's actually a pretty reasonable thing to assume that when you flood the market with new workers, then existing workers will suffer. Duh. Right? And who? Usually now the people who say that Democrats say, no, migrants are not taking Americans' jobs. They're taking the jobs no one else wants to do. The data doesn't bear that out. And usually the people who say that are keyboard workers, and they are only speaking for themselves. They are not the working class. They are not people who would have to take any job to feed their family. They don't know what that's like. Now, this hurts groups disproportionately, low income and uneducated workers. We discussed this earlier in the week when we discussed the new census data on poverty. Now, Larry Elder is a conservative talk show host. He says that immigration is bringing down wages for Black people. Here's how he describes it.
And by the way, the group most hurt by illegal alien labor are Black and brown people living in the inner city, because most of the illegal aliens have little education, if any. They compete against people with high school or less in the inner city. There are probably about 1 million fewer Black people working because of the presence of illegal alien labor.
And they bring down
to the tune of $2,000 per year. They put downward pressure on their wages.
That's amazing. And we, of course, confirmed this in our discussions about what's happening in Chicago and the Black population there, which are being forced out of their jobs, being forced out of their towns, being forced out of their homes, essentially, to illegal immigrants in Chicago.
Well, what he says is probably there are about 1 million fewer Black people working as a result of illegal immigration and downward pressure on wages of about $2,000 per year. Well, there's data to back this up. Now, this is data from 2009. From economists from Harvard, the University of Chicago, and UC San Diego. It showed way back in 2009 that even a 10% increase in the labor market would bring down Black wages by 2.5%. So that bears out. And plus increase unemployment for Black men by 5.8%, which then increases incarceration rates of Blacks by 1.3%. Not because it's anything to do with Black men being inherently criminal, but as economist Thomas Sowell points out, because populations of young men with no gainful employment and idle time has never led society to anywhere good. As the biblical proverb goes, idle hands do the devil's work, right? The same trend applies to Latinos and working white class communities, American citizens or residents, people who are here legally. Those groups of people get pushed out with an influx of workforce. Now, illegals are not taking programming jobs in Silicon Valley, clearly. It's unskilled laborers that they will hurt the most. Yet ABC News says this is just a Trump talking point. They got their own economist to say that. This is wrong, their economist says, and Black unemployment is just fine. They said it was the lowest it's ever been since Trump took office in April of 2023. Well, let's look at the data on Black unemployment, because the U.S. Bureau of statistics shows that black unemployment trended down during the Trump years, spiked during the pandemic, obviously, and then recovered miraculously. But it has been trending back up during the Biden years. Now, clearly, illegal immigration is not the only thing at play here. There are many factors that play into economic unemployment of black people. And you can see that unemployment trended down for black people, for blacks during the Obama years as well, but then continued during the Trump years. So this is a complex story, and it can't just be attributed to illegal or even legal migration, because Obama, in fact, deported more people than any other president. In fact, he was known as the deporter in chief. The point here is that Powell is acknowledging what Democrats do not want to, in that an influx of unskilled labor does hurt American citizens and legal residents. And even if the media is telling you that it's not hurting you, people know better. They know what they feel. They know what they can buy. And in fact, the inflation that's hurting them even worse, whether they have a job or not. They're done being told that they're fine, but the media just doesn't get it. Look at this New York Magazine headline. It says, why do black and Hispanic voters like Trump? They're asking as if it's an existential question, like they really don't want to bend their minds to understand it. Maybe because he's at least acknowledging what they experience instead of telling them that they do not experience it. So someone should ask Vice President Harris how she would respond to working class people who are losing their jobs to an influx of workers, as the Fed chief has just acknowledged. Now, when she's asked about the economy and American workers, she kind of gives the same robotic response about how she just loves people's ambitions and dreams. That's really all we get. I just hear this over and over. I just love Americans' ambitions and dreams. And that's about it. So she wants you to dream about working. She doesn't really want you to do it, though. Watch.
Why is joy important to you to insert into this election? And what do you make of Republicans using that as a way to suggest that you're not a serious candidate?
There are some times when your adversaries will try and turn your strength into a weakness. Don't you let them. Don't you let them. I find joy in the American people. I find joy in optimism, in what I see to be our future and our ability to invest in it. I find joy in the ambition of the people. I find joy in the dreams of the people. I find joy in building community. And I think we should all find joy and have a sense of optimism about who we are as Americans and what we mean to each other and what we can do to lift each other up.
Well,
So-
words to live by.
Yeah.
That'll help me get a job. That'll help me get a job.
Ambition, dreams, and optimism. She wants you to have those things, but she doesn't seem to have very much to say about how she will facilitate those things.
I would love for there to be a town hall meetings like we used to have back in the day with the presidential candidates. Very often the town hall meetings, the debates were always the best because you could get real questions from real audience members. Like we have one here from our chat. Stealth Mode writes, Redacted, I tried to get a job picking strawberries here in Florida and they would not hire me because I'm not a native Spanish speaker. This is so true. So imagine that's asking Kamala Harris that question during a town hall debate. You know, I was turned away from an American job because I was not a Spanish speaker and I'm a citizen, and they hired an illegal immigrant as a result of that. Like, what are you going to do to stop this? Well, I have a lot of joy. You know, I appreciate your joy to want to work.
Well, the data now shows that unemployment is high, and the Fed is worried about this, and they're worried about the influx of workers from abroad when American citizens cannot find jobs. Bottom line, that's it. Doesn't matter whose fault it is. What are we going to do about it? It's a nonpartisan issue. It's hurting everybody.